He whispered in the garden, sold them the lie, and the earth still bleeds. Dum-da-da-da, 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 dum-da-da-da. Through the garden with poison for breath, you twisted the warning and handed them death. You poisoned the soil, you broke every beast, you buried the future in thorns and disease. Curse of the serpent burned in the ground, death in the bloodline, pain all around. You thought you had won when the children all fell, but the sentence was written before you rebelled. Before you rebelled. Adam went down and the world felt the crack. Children still die for a choice they can't take back. You laughed in the dark while the prophet still bled, but the seed was already marked for your head. Dum 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 dum. Then he walked among us, showed us the Father, carried the curse, and shattered the slaughter. He paid what you started in full in the dirt. He broke every chain you wrapped around her. You lose. He's coming.
Ah! Boy, has it been a day. Sorry about the delay. It's Rumble Studio's down. I can't even stream, which is what we usually use for our multi-streaming, so they're completely offline. No idea why. And then, so I switched to backup, trying to go straight to YouTube and X. And X works. X worked perfectly, without a flaw. YouTube, on the other hand, no signal. So I had to go reset everything on YouTube, and now at least there's a signal. I have no chat, though. So you guys, if you're chatting to me, I have to go switch windows to read it. So there's probably going to be an additional delay if I want to go read the chat. So anyway, Let's get started. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. It is August 19th, 2026. And I've got some pretty exciting things to share with you tonight. It's kind of turning out to be kind of a curse on the earth, seal number 6 kind of night. I started off with addressing the unnecessary suffering questions from Dr. Todd Phillips. And that led into, well, the fix for this is coming. The fix is seal number 6. The reason we are suffering, all the answers to why we are suffering is because we're under the curse. We're going to get into the detail of his questions, obviously. But really, it boils down to the curse, and probably not in a way you've ever really thought of in this degree of detail before. Tonight, we're going to get into the detail, and I don't mean like chapter and verse. Yeah, we'll do some of that. But like things you weren't aware of about the earth and what's going to happen to it. Well, most of you are probably aware of it. If you watch the channel long enough, we've talked about these things in one way or the other. But we're gonna watch a video from the Creation Museum because they agree with me, and I like to watch videos of people who agree with me. No, they do a fantastic job. They have this thing called the creation model, and we're gonna go through the video and talk about it. It's all, I don't think they realize it, but it's all about seal number 6. All right, so before we do that, let's get into our news. We got a nice bold red because of the curse on the earth. This is the reason for unnecessary suffering, the curse on the earth. And that's our theme. This one's red. The other ones are our normal blue and gold, but I thought we'd be fun and be like, the curse, seal number 6. All right, let's get started. So this is what the curse of the earth is. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the great earthquake, the earth being shaken, the sun becomes black as sackcloth, the moon becomes as blood, stars of heaven fall to earth, the sky is rolled up like a scroll, every mountain and island is moved, and men hide themselves from the face of him who sits on the throne. So that's what we have to look forward to tonight. So before we get into that, let us get into the news, and I need to find where I hid the news. News, where are you? There you are. You're hiding way over here. Hang on a minute. Bear with me. It's just one of those days, guys. Okay, you need to be over here. You need to be over there. Close you. News. Alrighty. All right. Trump and the Strait of Hormuz. Boy, we haven't talked about that in a while, since yesterday. President Trump is doubling down. He posted a revised map on Truth Social labeling the Strait of Hormuz new U.S. territory. This comes just over 170 days into the conflict with Iran. Trump says the waterway is open and operating. All water mines have been removed or detonated. He also made clear there are no talks or conversations going on with Iran, and there's none scheduled. The naval blockade remains in full force. Iran calls it delusions and says the strait opens and closes under their commands. What? They're the ones who are delusional. Oil prices obviously reacted. Brent crude jumped. Traffic through the strait is still very low. Moving on here, we got Canada tariffs. So last minute Canada tariff pause. Trump announced a last minute deal with Canada. He paused the 50% tariff on about $20 billion of Canadian goods. The pause is for 3 days, so both sides can finalize documents. It comes less than 2 hours before the tariffs were set to hit. Canadian officials say significant work remains, but the immediate pressure is off for now. The White House hits back at OFF, Senator John Ossoff. Oh, I didn't have. Why don't I have? Where's the crypto? I think we moved the Crypto. So Trump met with technology and crypto leaders today at the White House. Pushed America to become the crypto capital of the world. Called on Congress to pass the Clarity Act to stay ahead of China. We're in this weird race with crypto and AI to where we know they're bad, but we got to do it better and faster than anyone else, so they can't hold it over our head. You can see how this second beast is rising from the land, man. It's just like an unnecessary evil race, whatever have you. Anyway, back to Ossoff. Senator John Ossoff attacked President Trump at a rally in Atlanta. He called Trump an absentee president who doesn't want to do the job and prefers building a ballroom and traveling with Natalie. What the F, dude? You are completely and totally clueless. Wake up and pay attention. Clearly a stupid attack on John Ossoff's part. Anyway, that's a reference to executive assistant Natalie Harp, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, and spokesman David Engel responded pretty hard. They called Ossoff out as a lightweight and worse. The nickname they gave him is Sticking. Trans assassination plot has been... Let's see. Trans assassination plot sentence. Ryan Michael English. I got my slides all out of order. This has just been one of those days. We've got 3 slideshows to go through. Apparently I screwed this one up. All right, 73 months. So this is the Besant plot sentence. Here we go. Ryan Michael English, a Massachusetts man who identifies as a woman, has been sentenced. He was arrested on Capitol grounds in January 2025 with a knife and 2 Molotov cocktails. He confessed he was there to assassinate Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. During the confirmation vote, a note recovered said he couldn't stand by while Nazis kill my sisters. Prosecutors wanted 10 years. The sentence came in at 73 months, just over 6 years. U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro said attempts to intimidate or harm public officials will not be tolerated. All right, now we can get to shoplifting. Shoplifting, biological need. New York State Assembly member Emily Gallagher is pushing to effectively decriminalize shoplifting because we've seen that work out so well. After watching arraignments, she said most cases were crimes of poverty. No, not true. People stealing toothpaste and soap. What a lie. See, no, that's so completely untrue. I mean, this is something we actually watch here. We follow Truth on the Streets with Kevin Dahlgren, who interviews these people. Most people on the streets want to be on the streets. They have mental illness or they have drug addictions. This is not a crime of poverty. They're not just stealing soap. They're stealing a lot of things under $1,000 so that they can get their next fixed. This is not a crime of poverty. This is a crime of drug addiction, crime of mental illness. And areas like these sanctuary cities like in Oregon and Portland, where they have this mentality of, well, they literally give them the drug paraphernalia because they feel like they're protecting them by giving them clean stuff up front rather than dealing with it on the it's just such a chaotic way of thinking. This is not crimes of poverty. This is crimes against humanity, really. And it's not on the part of the people who are in these situations. It's literally those who are in charge who are responsible for this stuff. She called it the result of a biological need. Instead of protecting stores like CVS and Walgreens, the focus is on coddling the thieves. Yeah. So this has got to be one of the steps towards the mark of the beast for buying and selling. There's going to be a new government. You're going to have there's going to be a limited amount of stores. And the only way you're going to be able to buy and sell is with their mark. Unfortunately, we're not going to be here, you and I. I'm pretty sure we'll be out of here at that point in time. Ghost guns. Oops. Man, these slides are all messed up. What I did is I got two slides instead of switching sides. Ghost guns rule blocked. Federal judge in Texas struck down the Biden-era ATF rule on so-called ghost guns. The 2022 rule tried to treat partially manufactured frames and receivers as firearms. Chief Judge Reed O'Connor ruled it unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. He also found it void for vagueness under the Fifth Amendment. He said it attacked the historical American tradition of personal gunsmithing. Good. That's great news. Right, now we move to Fauci. Fauci ally pleads guilty. Former senior Fauci advisor David Morins pleads guilty. He admitted to conspiring to hide federal records related to COVID or origins research. This includes efforts to protect funding and suppress discussion of the lab leak theory. Separately, former ABC journalist Terry Moran claims a 2021 lab leak segment he prepared was heavily altered. He says it came back unrecognizable after review by lawyers, standards, and he was told by Fauci himself. Hochul donor switches sides. Major Democrat donor Bonnie Englehart Lautenberg is backing Republican Bruce Blakeman against New York Governor Kathy Hochul. Lautenberg is the widow of former Democrat Senator Frank Lautenberg, and she personally gave money to Hochul. A new Siena poll shows Hochul's lead shrinking 49 to 39%. It was 20 points earlier this summer. Trump warns. Did I miss another slide? I did. I missed. Sorry about the slides, guys. Maybe, you know what? Man, they're really out of order. Okay, that slide's way down there. You know what? Let's just switch to my ugly face. The slides are too distracting for me. I'm sorry. If you need those slides, I'm just trying to improve the quality of the show to those slides, and I don't think it's happening. So where was I? Let's just read the news. All right. Trump warns Alaska voters. President Trump warned Alaskans to vote for the real Dan Sullivan. That's incumbent Republican Senator Dan S. Sullivan. Democrats put up another candidate with the same name, Dan J. Sullivan, a retired teacher. Trump called it a hoax and told voters to choose the incumbent. Don't let these fraudsters get away with this. Man, they will just find any way they can to cheat. The Department of Education is shrinking. Good. Undersecretary Linda McMahon, the Department of Education, has cut nearly 50% of its staff. Undersecretary Nicholas Kent called the progress remarkable. Core services continue. Some functions are moving to labor and treasury. New borrowing caps on graduate loans are already pressuring schools to cut tuition. An accountability framework is next. Programs must show real earning gains for students. Massachusetts mayor has been charged. Lawrence, Massachusetts Mayor Brian DePina has been arrested. He is charged with wire fraud and money laundering. Prosecutors say he fraudulently obtained over $1.5 million in COVID EIDL loans for his tire business. The money allegedly went to personal taxes, campaign accounts, and paying off high-interest private mortgages. The outstanding print. I wonder how many people did that, though. How many people got those loans and used it for personal stuff rather than business? I had a legitimate business. I tried to get one of those loans, and they want to give it to me. So it's makes me wonder how people got them and then used them for to pay off personal stuff. I don't know. The outstanding principal is still roughly the full amount. Okay. El Sayed mothers ties. So Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed, his birth mother worked for the Islamic American Relief Agency from 1999 to at least 2004. The Treasury Department designated that group a global terrorist organization. It was accused of providing funds to Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and Hamas. She was denied she has denied any knowledge of terrorist ties. El-Sayed rarely mentions her in the campaign. Swalwell and the FBI files. Newly released FBI files show Democrat leadership was briefed years ago on Eric Swalwell's relationship with suspected Chinese intelligence operative Fang Fang. Swalwell admitted to physical relations with her. His staff placed her interns. Campaign finance controls failed to catch straw donations. Nancy Pelosi and Democrats kept him on the Intelligence Committee anyway. Kevin McCarthy called it national security liability. Republicans later blocked him from the committees. If I'm not mistaken, China is still technically an enemy of the United States of America, right? It's kind of a big deal. Isn't that treason for members of the government to, number one, consort with spies who are enemies of the country, and then for other members of government to support them? Isn't that treason? Do I not understand treason? Maybe I don't understand treason. Israel strikes Syrian airbase. Israel confirmed strikes on the Abu al-Duhur military airfield in Syria. Idlib province. The prime minister's office said Syria was about to breach the status quo by allowing Turkish troops near Aleppo. Israel warned repeatedly. Syria ignored the warnings. U.S. Envoy Tom Barrack called the strikes an unnecessary escalation. Syria and Turkey strongly condemned them. There were no casualties reported. The runway was the main target. Chinese national photographs the B-2 base. Qilin Wu, Q-I-L-I-N, Qilin Wu, has been sentenced to 6 months in jail. He photographed Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, home of the entire B-2 Spirit stealth bomber fleet. He returned after being warned. He admitted photographing other bases as well. He originally entered the country illegally near Nogales. In 2023, he will be deported to China after serving the sentence. Florida primaries. On the Republican side, Representative Byron Donalds won the nomination for Florida governor. On the Democrat side, progressive DSA member Angie Nixon upset former Trump impeachment witness Alexander Vindman in the Senate primary. Other races continue to show internal party fights. A couple of quick additions. Trump with the tech leaders today. There's that slide. It was way down there. I really got it out of order. Today at the White House, President Trump met with technology and crypto leaders. He is pushing hard for America to become the crypto capital of the world. He called on Congress to pass Clarity Act and stay ahead of China. Anyway, that's the news. Sorry I bungled that one up so much. But let us move on to unnecessary suffering. But before we do, I want to hear this song, Fear the Lord, because it's the fear of the Lord that is the beginning of knowledge. And that's what we're doing by addressing these questions from Dr. Todd Phillips. This is beginning to understand the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of knowledge. Here we go.
In the quiet of the night, when the signs are screaming loud, he whispers in his heart, the master's running late somehow. Beats the ones he should be feeding, trades the truth for drunken lies, chases shadows, numbs the watching, lets the lamp inside him die. The days grow long, the nights feel endless, he won't come today, so he joins the feast of scoffers, lets the fear of God decay. But the thief is in the garden, and the hour's drawing near. Every heartbeat is a warning, every comfort breeds more fear. Fear the Lord, O
yet he chose the easy road. Smote the brethren, mocked the faithful, carried heavy sin's own load. Thought the master tarried longer, lived as though he'd never come. Now the sky is split asunder, now the reckoning has begun. No escape for those pretending, knowledge brings the many stripes. Few for those who never knew, but you walked in gospel light. The wedding feast is over, now the master stands at the door. What will he find in your household? What was all the waiting for? Wake up, watchman, loins girded. Let your lamp be burning bright. Don't let delay poison your spirit through another sleepless night. The Son of Man is coming at an hour you think not. Will you be found faithful? Or will you be cut off? Fear the Lord, but trust his mercy. He rewards the steadfast heart. Blessed is the servant watching, ready from the very start. Found still feeding, still enduring, giving meat in season true. Ruler over all his treasures, seated where the master serves you. Endurance through the darkness, obedience in the wait. The good heart knows the Father, and the good heart meets its fate. Not in terror, but in glory, when the King steps through the door. Enter in, my faithful servant, you have waited. Now restore. Delay no more. Delay no more. Be the good servant forevermore.
Oh, that's a good song. Well, Rumble Studio just came back. I'm not switching over. We're dealing with it the way it is. All right. Unnecessary suffering. 109 questions from Dr. Todd Phillips. We are in section 7.
Real, and I ever stand before him, these are some of the questions that I'd have. Why create a world with this much unnecessary suffering? I'm not talking about the suffering that we cause each other as humans. I'm talking about the suffering that just happens completely on its own without our involvement. Why do children get cancer? Why do millions of parents pray every day for those children to be healed and absolutely nothing happens?
Yep.
Why create parasites like the river blindness parasite that seems to exist for the single purpose of burrowing into child's eyes and blinding them? That's its purpose. Why allow earthquakes and floods and fires to wipe out entire families, entire communities in the blink of an eye? Why design a world where animals spend their lives in fear, tearing each other apart just to survive? Why do some people wake up every day in pain for year after year after year with no end in sight? What greater good could possibly require this much pain? What could ever justify it? And if you're perfectly good, why does so much of this world appear to serve no good at all? And if you knew every moment of suffering this world would hold, why create it this way in the first place? Aren't you all powerful? Couldn't you have done literally anything different? If there is a God, and I ever...
Why are Christians not asking questions like this? These are the questions you should be asking in church. You should be making your pastors give you better answers, because this is the reality of the world we are living in, and church is not feeding meat. So people don't understand why these bad things happen. These are the good questions. This is what leads to understanding. This is what leads to knowledge.
If God is real,
There we go. We'll restart this. All right, let's get back over here. All right, so why so much apparently pointless suffering, natural disasters, disease, and animal suffering? So I'm going to talk about parasites. And so I have to be really careful with YouTube, because one of the things that they are most aggressive on is healthcare advice. So I'm probably going to frame it in regards to my farm and treating parasites with our animals. So I'm going to try, we're going to see how it works. They may yank this off the air so fast. But I'm going to try and talk about it and be real with you guys, because he brought it up. Why are there these terrible parasites? So if you hear me framing something in regards to horses and goats, then just know what it is that I'm referring to is, the remedies for their parasites are widely applicable. Let's just put it that way. All right, natural disaster. So why do innocent children suffer? Couldn't free will exist with far less pain? What does this say about God's character? All right, let us get on. So we got to start here. The curse. Dun dun dun. This was the song today. What was it called?
He whispered in the garden, sold them the lie.
Ending the curse. He whispered in the garden, sold them the lie. The curse on the earth, the suffering we see, is the direct result of the curse that came on the earth after the fall. This is Genesis 3. Even the animals suffer under it. These are the result of choices that were made long ago by our ancestors, our forefathers. They still shape the world we live in today. This is part of the reconstruction. This is why seal number 6 is part of this conversation, is because that is the beginning of the restoration. And it's very, very interesting that that's when Jesus returns, the beginning of the restoration. There's a lot that we can read into that, which is interesting, and could very well explain why he had to be gone for 2,000 years. Those would be some other uneasy questions. Why did the Messiah have to die and leave? Where the hell is he? Hard questions are awesome. All right. The institutional church often misrepresents what it means for God to be all-powerful and all-good. We've talked about this endlessly, answering these questions. A perfect system that includes free will must allow real consequences and real balance. It's almost as if the desire here in answering these questions is, how can we live only the light and not experience the darkness? And that's probably has something to do with Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I mean, it says it right in the name, knowledge of good and evil. You got the balance right there. If you're going to experience the good, how can you know the good without knowing the evil? Unfortunately. Let's get into answering these questions directly now. All right. So why create a world with this much unnecessary suffering? What will fully reveal his power and goodness is the coming restoration. So we can see the labor pains of this right now with the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the change in weather, the spiritual changes throughout the world, the conflicts, what's happening in Israel. Oh man, I saw the Parsha Inspired put out a good video today. I really wanted to respond to, but we got so many things to respond to. We're just not going to have time. It'll be a 5-hour episode. I don't think you guys want to listen to my gullet for 5 hours, maybe 2.5. We'll see. But the reality is we're under the curse, and we're not going to truly see his goodness until the restoration. So of the new heavens and the new earth. But what's cool is we have writing about it, and we can see the evidence of it happening right now, which is really cool. It's the most exciting time to be alive, and most people aren't paying attention because they believe no man knows the day or hour. So they're just completely dumb to what's happening. We are living in the final days before the earth gives up her dead and is restored to its original glory. And nobody knows. Hardly anybody knows that. Why? The present age is not the finished product. The thing that he has an issue with is the curse. All of his questions revolve around the consequences of Adam and Eve's choices in the very beginning. We're still suffering. And I really hope that this video reaches him. I hope I have the opportunity to talk to him, to show him what God has in store. And we can see the evidence scientifically of what's occurring. And it's a better answer than you'll ever get in church for the most part. The character and power of God will be seen most clearly in what is still ahead. This is why we're looking for seal 5 and 6. So seal 5 tells us all about the tribulation. Seal 5 is the tribulation, which is, the process the earth is going through right before it rolls over. So there's spiritual stuff happening and there's physical stuff happening. Next question. Natural disasters, disease, and animal suffering. Again, these are the fruits of the curse that are placed on the ground and on the created order in Genesis 3. The whole creation was subjected to frustration and decay. You read Romans 8 about that. We're gonna get into this in real detail. Like I'm gonna get through answering his questions, and we're gonna spend about 20 minutes talking about what the restoration of the earth looks like. It's gonna be cool. Natural disasters, disease, and animal suffering are not random. They are part of the broken condition of the present age. You got a little glimpse into that if you watched yesterday's show with the copperhead snakes in the hyperbaric chambers. Often the consequences God declares in Scripture. So when one of the biggest things that people misunderstand when they're reading the Scripture is they read the Scripture, and when God is declaring the consequences of something, they associate those consequences with him, when really a lot of the times he's just announcing like the cause and effect of something. So yeah, it's associated with him as the creator. If he made it all, he made the perfectly balanced system, but when somebody suffers under that system, he is technically to blame, even though it's probably a consequence of their own action, such as, case in point, did you know that a lot of fish contain parasites, and by eating fish, you may subject yourself to parasites? There's a lot of different things that you can eat that will subject you to parasites. And you can get parasites in your body and not even know it. So that you can live with them your entire life. You can suddenly start getting rashes that never seem to go away, aches and pains that you attribute to old age, brain fog, shortness of breath, a change in your eating, your nutritional, the way your body handles nutrition, like a massive amount of things. There can be so many different parasites from things you've eaten. On our farm, one way we treat parasites, our horses, we give them ivermectin, and our goats, we give them fenbendazole. The interesting thing about these two things is they're probably one of the most powerful things against parasites and against a lot of these ailments. I highly recommend that you seek out information on these, join some groups, learn about them. Highly recommend groups that cover both of those. Seriously, not a joke. Like, we've seen amazing results in our animals. Some might call them miraculous. The cool thing about ivermectin is it prevents parasites from cell replication. So it just basically stops them from multiplying and kills them off that way. Fenbendazole attacks them at a microtubule level, preventing them from processing sugar. So it starves them out. They are amazing, and they have worked really well on our farm with our animals. I highly recommend researching and looking into them because parasites are a massive problem. You can get them from eating anything. You can eat an apple and get a parasite. So, and it's really an issue with human beings. Somebody had said that if you eat salmon, you should do cleanses. You should do regular cleanses because you just have no idea what you're eating, and you may never know. I'll tell you, no, I won't tell you that. That will actually get me in trouble. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Seriously, go investigate those. They are in. They've served us well on the farm. Let's just put it that way. Often the consequence. Okay, so let's move on to our next. So, enduring the consequences of the curse. Isn't it pretty cool, though, that even under the curse, there are things that God has given us to combat the curse, combat the things that we suffer while under the curse? So, much of the law itself functions as a set of stopgap measures to help people endure the effects of the curse. For instance, cleanliness laws. We know a lot more now about why cleanliness is important, but when they were initially implemented and started, they had no idea about bacteria. And I honestly, I think that there's probably even more. We've only now just scratched the surface of learning the effect of the world around us. Like I think that, so one of the things is you become unclean when you touch a dead body. I think there's more to that than we know today. We've learned about bacteria, we've learned about decay, but there's something about that we have yet to understand. But the law has it to where if you touch a dead body, you're unclean, and you have to go through a particular regimen to become clean. Same thing with giving birth. Women have to go through sacrificing 2 turtle doves and a lamb. There's more to this stuff than we fully understand. And I believe that God gave those as stop measures to help us endure the curse. And some of them will continue. They're obviously the ones that were, given into perpetuity, serve as a reminder of whence we've come, from whence we have come. So like fasting, instructions about foods to avoid, practical examples. So parasites still cause massive problems, many of which go undiagnosed today. We've talked about this. There you go. You can read that. Got to be very careful with this one. It's this one will still get you in trouble. They actually made me take a class. I can't tell you what video it was, but YouTube, when you cross this boundary or when you get really close to it, they will make you they'll threaten your channel to delete it, or they will have you take an educational class to learn what you can and cannot say. And this is one of them. This is one of the things that you got to be really careful with. Which is so interesting why it's such a big deal, because it's probably one of the oldest methods for dealing with parasites. So why do innocent children suffer? The straightforward answer, again, is Adam introduced death when he took from the tree. God warned exactly what would happen. In the day you eat thereof, you will surely die. Well, he didn't die the day he ate of it. Something happened to him, which led to him dying, and apparently that carries on to his children. So why do we suffer and die? Well, not only is death part of our cycle right now under the curse, but also there's evil in this world, an immense amount of evil. If it is true that angels produced children with the daughters of men, and that resulted in Nephilim, and the Nephilim died and became evil spirits. Who knows how many evil spirits there are that cause problems? We're living in that world. This is why I believe Jesus said the world hated me long before it hated you. So we're in a unfortunate environment where it's not conducive to light. It's not conducive to it's not an entirely loving environment, unfortunately. If God simply reversed the consequences without the larger redemptive plan, it would make him a liar. It would insinuate it wasn't perfect from the very beginning. You guys understand that? That's one of the biggest issues that I see people don't really fully think through. Is God, for him to really be all the things we say he is, to be perfect, to be all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere present, means that he has to know the end from the beginning and know everything that's going to happen from throughout the whole process. Throughout that whole linear process, he has to know the cause and effect of everything that's going to happen. And he has it perfectly designed to end in the result that he wanted. And if halfway through that breaks, or it turns out something wasn't true and he has to adjust it, wouldn't that make him not perfect, not all-knowing? So I think that's why he interjects, why he, has his messengers and his angels try to help and protect us, is because the consequences are very real. And that's one of the things I think the church, a lot of religions will do, is it gives you this an unnatural sense of safety. Yes, I do believe that God can protect you in miraculous ways. This is coming from somebody who's been electrocuted more times than I can count, and I've been hit by cars 2 or 3 times. One time was a car was going, I can't remember the speed. It was either 45 or 65 miles an hour. But I was crossing a crosswalk, and the car hit me and threw me 40 feet. Now, the physicists and the engineers in here, you can do the math. I was 18 years old when this happened. So this was almost 30 years ago. More than 30 years ago, actually. So this is more than 30 years ago. So you can do the math. How hard I would have to be hit to be thrown 40 feet. The math says I should be dead. And yet here I am alive. So yeah, I do believe in guardian angels. I do believe that God does intercede where he can. I also believe that there's, with names being written in the book of life, there are certain things need to happen for his plan. That's another thing that we underestimate is, that might be why he got angry at certain people in the Old Testament who, didn't marry somebody they should have, or did something they weren't supposed to, or killed somebody they weren't supposed to, or didn't kill somebody they should have, is it may have, had an effect that needed to be adjusted. But anyway, the point being is, what is my point? The great news is that God pre-planned the redemption. Death is not permanent, right? In the very beginning, in Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman would bruise the head of the serpent. So the scale of suffering we currently see is the ongoing effect of the curse on the earth. It is severe, but it is not the final word. So why do innocent children suffer and die? Simple answer is we're living on a cursed planet, subject to the consequences of sin and death. And people don't fully grasp the reality of that. Church, in a lot of ways, hides that. They try and paint a rosy picture over that, the reality of that. Okay, next question. Couldn't free will and character exist with far less pain? Yes, those things were possible without this level of pain. That was the original design before sin. I'm assuming that was the original design before sin. Our ancestors chose the path that led to the life we now experience. Anyone telling you otherwise is not telling you the full story. Much of the institutional church presumes too much before the full redemption is complete. Oops. A large portion of Scripture is actually about the future redemption, the sealing up of the prophecies, and the final end of the suffering and the curse. The future hope is rarely taught with clarity. A lot of the teaching is, it's almost like they're trying to teach that we're in the garden now. That, it's a nothing bad can happen kind of a thing. All you have to do is say these magic words or do this magic dance or do this magic ritual, and you're good, unfortunately. All right, next question. Perspective. If you think you have it bad, your suffering is uniquely severe. Remember that the world hated Jesus long before it hated you. Much of the perspective behind the objection that suffering looks gratuitous comes from an inherited assumptions and partial teachings that need to be unlearned. The present age is not the finished product. This is why we arm ourselves, unfortunately. This is why we learn how to defend ourselves, unfortunately. There's going to come a day where we don't need to learn those things anymore. That is the reality. If you're in a group that is teaching anything different than that, they're probably teaching you lies. They're teaching you magic tricks to, avoid potential consequences of being in the wrong place at the wrong time or saying something stupid or doing something stupid. The reality of it is this world is under a curse. We don't live forever. Our bodies don't heal as fast as they were designed to. And a lot of the animals and the plants are affected by the state of the earth. So instead of healing, they're harmful. Instead of nutritious, they're toxic. What does this say about God's character and power? A truly loving God did not design the suffering we see as the original plan. He allowed free will, warned of the consequences, and pre-planned the redemption from the very beginning. The seed of the woman will bruise the head of the serpent. His power and goodness will be fully displayed in the restoration of all things. When the curse is finally removed and the earth is made new, the character of God is not measured by the broken middle of the story, but by the beginning and the promised end. That's really, so your perspective, you really got to expand your perspective. He's so much bigger than the moment you're living in right now. You're alive because he wanted you to be alive. And even though he knew that it could be potentially painful, he still wanted you to be alive because he wanted you part of the perfection when it is complete. Keep that in mind when things are hard. Let's see what it did and what comes next. Let's talk about the curse. So now we're going to start moving into this next video and getting into the nitty gritty about the curse. So the Genesis 3 curse affected the ground, the animals, human labor, childbirth, and the relationship between humanity and creation. We are still living under its effects, but the story does not end there. Scripture points forward to a time when the curse is actually removed, the earth is restored, and death is swallowed up in victory. And you and I, we have the great privilege to live during that time. We're quite literally probably in seal number 4, maybe seal number 5 right now. I'm still yet to be determined. I know for a fact we're in at least seal number 4. That much I can prove, that we've gotten to at least that point. And it's even more than just my timeline. If you're new here, we have a timeline here that we've compiled data for how we know we're in the end time. Go watch any of our other videos. We talk about it quite a lot. I think there's one pinned to the channel that walks you through the foundation of the data. Or at least in seal number 4. And there's a lot of evidence we don't talk about on here. The Jews talk about it all the time. Like things like they know we're in the end times because the Jews are returning to Israel. They know we're in the end times because there's a conflict with Iran. They know the end, like they have this list of they know we're in the end times. They're looking for the Mashiach. They're looking for the Messiah any day now. We're looking for seal 5 and 6 because seal 5 is the tribulation of the earth, both between men and probably also on the earth, because it's leading up to seal number 6, which is shaping up to look like the magnetic pole shift. which is the process of restoring the earth back to its pre-flood conditions. We're going to watch a video on that in a minute here. So seal 5, seal 6 sit in the prophetic sequence that leads towards the final cleansing and restoration of the earth. These seals help frame the intensity of the present age and the nearness of the transition into God's final dealings with the curse and the rebellion. The suffering of this age is real, but it's temporary. So there's no sense in denying the suffering. If you got rosy glasses on, wake up. All right, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The final answer to the problem of suffering is not a philosophical argument. It is the promised removal of the curse itself. No more death, mourning, crying, or pain. That's Revelation 21:4. The earth will be restored, the connection repaired, and the original design fulfilled. All right. There you go. Let us move on to the last days. So I wanted to watch this video with you guys. It's about 20 minutes long. I'm going to try not to interrupt it as much. We'll just watch this together, and then we'll kind of go through some of these cards to review what it is that he says. And what it is the state of the earth right now is under the curse. We just went through a detailed answering questions of the consequences of the curse. And now we're going to start looking at the restoration of the earth and the undoing of that curse. So this is from the same video that we watched yesterday. We watched this video about the effects of hyperbaric chambers on snake venom. So this is an older video, and this is called the creation model. They may have updated this. This was in 2014. I'm loving that these videos are accessible again. They were not accessible for a while. Anytime I would search for them, they didn't come up. But so I'm clinging on to this stuff now for you guys. So we're gonna watch this video, and he's gonna explain. Now we've learned some new things since he did this model. That's when I'll interject. But let's watch this together. This is the last days creation in symphony. This is the model part 10. This is I think they actually make DVDs of this whole thing, but this is what we're going to talk about today. Here we go. Maybe.
Well, we've torn it up. Now,
boy, ain't that an old video. It's probably older than 2014. This might have been, I don't know, this looks like 1950s to me. A lot of the information's still good.
let's put it back together. I'm going to venture into eschatology and prophecy. I have indicated previously that all this model is tentative and preliminary because my observations and the observations of the consultants involved in this research would certainly be compromised. But the model is consistent. Now, when we get into eschatology, I'm aware that there are various individuals watching this series who may differ to one degree or another about what the future holds, even those who firmly believe the biblical record. For some, what I'm going to say, this will be interpreted as a phase-in for the eternal ages. For others, there will be an interpretation of a literal period of tribulation. For some, there will be a premillennial, for some, a postmillennial return, as there is a phase for God to restore the creation and for God in the second person of the Trinity to rule and reign. But let me approach this, no matter how you interpret this, and you certainly have that prerogative, let me approach this as if all of these increments are literal, and we will see either way, no matter how you interpret it, as literal increments, as a phase-in to the eternal ages, or as a variant millennial reign. Either way, you'll be satisfied that the Creator is going to return and rectify all that we've damaged. We call this the tribulation globe. A number of things are occurring.
Tribulation globe.
Beginning here, we have our current.
So since he's made this video, the magnetic pole shift wasn't as aggressive. I don't know exactly when this video was made, but even in 2014, the magnetic pole shift had only just started to move. It hasn't been moving that long. So he's missing the major elements in this series about the magnetic pole shift. And so that's some of the stuff I'm going to jump in and say, this is probably the magnetic pole shift, not what he's expecting. So as we learn new information, we're going to interject it here.
Lines of electromagnetic energy of the Earth that are loosened and disturbed. They're not pinched at all.
So when he says that they're loosened and disturbed, this is very likely the magnetic pole. So I should have prepared this video. Suspicious Observers, his foundational video, goes and explains and shows how initially when it started moving, they started tracking it in like 1940s, something like that. And it was only moving like a half of an inch a year. And then it went to like 2 inches. It got up to like a foot. And now it's moving like a lot. Like it's almost like a snowball effect where it's moving more and more and more. And it's getting faster and faster. And it's getting to the point to where it can cause the rotation of the Earth, not in the normal rotation, but the North and South Pole to rotate to the equator.
If we are to have a time in the future when the lion and the lamb will lie down together, and the child will play on the den of the asp and the cockatrice, if we're to have a time in the future when a man will live out his full age and his family will enjoy their own vines and fig trees, then we must have a restoration of the magnetic field. At the Creation Evidences Museum, we have simulated what the world was like before the global flood, and the results have been very encouraging, as I'll show you momentarily. But in order to get those results, we had to strengthen the magnetic field at the right Hertz level. So there needs to be a mechanism in the creation model and in the biblical record to strengthen that magnetic field. That's called the translation of the saints. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep.
So what I believe he's describing when he says the translation of the saints, I believe it's actually the magnetic pole shifts and also, okay, let's do this. So let's read seals number 5 and 6, and then we'll also do, oops, over here. Matthew 24, 21. All right. So this, I believe, is seal number 4, the abomination of desolation. Most Christians, most people for, a long time have assumed that the abomination of desolation has something to do with the Antichrist going into the temple and declaring himself God. Or bringing a pig into the temple. What's interesting, though, is if you look at the parallel record of this, I think it's Luke 21, where it talks about the abomination. Oh, I'm in Luke 24. Wrong. We need Luke 21. There you go. Nation will rise against nation, earthquakes, famines, pestilences. These are all the seals happening. This is the earth preparing for restoration. It's preparing to undo the curse that it's under. Here you go. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. That was October 7th, 2024. When the nations, all the nations were lobbing, I think 300, 400, 500, maybe it was 1,200. I can't remember how many missiles that were being launched into Israel at one time. But they were surrounded, and they were trying to be they were trying to destroy them. That was the abomination of desolation, I believe. Also, when Hamas went in, that was death. Death went in and they killed, what was it, 1,200 or 3,000? I think it was, they killed 1,200, wounded 3,000, and took like 250 hostage. Don't quote me on those statistics, but you know what I'm talking about. October 7th, the Al-Aqsa flood, as it is called. When you see Jerusalem surrounded with armies and know its desolation is near, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart her, and let not those who are in her country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing. Oh boy, the things they did to pregnant women and babies. Atrocities. For there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. Hostages? And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. We're still suffering the consequences of that incursion. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea, and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear of the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Okay, so that's a parallel record to this. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. That happened. Let those who are in the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. That literally happened. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. There was a music event in the fields, and people who went back to save others ended up dead. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. There were serious atrocities that happened. Look it up. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world. It's entirely possible that seal number 5 happened with nothing calling attention to it. Because seal number 5 is immediately after seal number 4. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be, and unless those days were short, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says, do you look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. You can see the parallels with Luke 21. Okay, now let's read seal 5 and 6. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain. So we're talking about dead people, for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. This is not any one religion. This is probably a lot of people who believe in God, Christian and Jews alike. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? You know, I wonder if this isn't those from seal number 4. I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Wouldn't that be interesting if this was referring to the Al-Aqsa flood, if it was just that simple? I've always thought that it was like everybody who's dead. But the fact that this is immediately after seal 4, I heard a voice of the fourth living creature say, come and see. So I looked. The name of him was Death, and Hades followed him, and power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword and hunger with death and by the beasts of the earth. All of this is happening. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. You know, context would suggest that could be referring to these. Anyway, doesn't really matter. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both. And this is why I think this is seal number. This is the Great Tribulation, right here. Because the wording of death here, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So over here, you've got language that seems to match with seal number 4, death followed by hell. And then you have language that is a continuation of death followed by hell, but it's like bad things are happening on earth. Power over a quarter of the earth, people dying by beasts and hunger and stuff like that. And then you get to seal 5 and it's like you got to wait for more people to die. And then over here you got the Great Tribulation, which is a lot of people are going to die. And it's so bad that if it wasn't shortened, no flesh would survive. So you see the parallels here. And what really drives it home here is this seal number 6, because a lot of the language lines up here. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. Okay, so this is a solar eclipse. This is a blood moon. So there is some differences. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. So for both the sun to be darkened and the moon to be darkened, that could be a solar eclipse. Yeah. So the moon moving in front of the sun could be a solar eclipse. But you see the parallel. The sun will become black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon will become like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. The moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven. The powers of heaven will be shaken. Right? So you got that parallel. Stars from heaven fell like a mighty fig. And then here you have the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. That one's not over here. Here it says the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. I'm pretty sure this is probably the 12 tribes of Israel, maybe the 144,000. Because it says in, what is it, Zechariah 2, they're scattered to the 4 quarters. From the land of the north says, for I have spread you abroad like the 4 winds of heaven, says the Lord. Up Zion, escape you who dwell in the daughter of Babylon. Yeah. Anyway, you see the point. This is clearly when Jesus returns. So this is why I keep saying Jesus will likely return at seal number 6, because of the likelihood that these are the same thing. Then the sky receded like a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. Well, for every island and mountain to move out of its place, either the whole planet needs to move, or the mountains and the islands need to move. So either the crust of the earth moves or the whole freaking planet rotates, which we see evidence right now of the whole freaking planet rotating. This is not a joke. This is legitimately observed by science, by scientists. We have instruments at the North and South Pole that are monitoring these things. The earth is rotating, and it's going to get to a point to where it will suddenly snap. And that's when you're going to see the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves. Yep. In the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the rocks and the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, who is able to stand. You see the parallels, right? Seal number 5 and 6 seem to be the Great Tribulation and then the magnetic pole shift. So what does that look like? I've been playing around. I just found out today Grok has this build mode. So I was trying to build a simulator to simulate the magnetic pole shift. So I'm not quite done with it yet. These are people. They're moving. It's supposed to be physics based, so as you move it, the water's supposed to move. I don't know if you can see the water moving in here. It's not done yet. I just started working on this today. But there's your North Pole right there. So there's the North Pole. What's going to happen is it's going to rotate down like this. There you go. And that's going to cause the sky to roll up like a scroll, and very likely cause, these are supposed to be satellites, and hail, potentially even hail. So we're going to continue watching the video, and he's going to describe how potentially hail could be part of the process.
But we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. The word twinkling there is the word ripito in the Greek. That word ripito means a flashing detectable to the eye. Imagine, if you will, the saints and children of the world at the moment an Antichrist is prepared to take over, being translated away as Christ comes.
So when he says Antichrist, again, this is something that we've learned. When you study the word Antichrist, it doesn't actually fit the narrative that most people are aware of. It's most likely a doctrine or a belief, a way of thinking, because they've been. Here's the too long didn't read of what the Antichrist probably is. When Jesus died, it was the systems of the world beginning to work against what Jesus had done. That's in a nutshell what the Antichrist really is, because when you study it, you see that it's been around since the disciples started spreading the gospel over Asia Minor. The context of 1st and 2nd John, that's the only place you find the mention of the Antichrist, and it's called a spirit. And it has specific attributes. They deny the Father and the Son. They deny that Jesus is the Messiah, and they deny that Jesus came in the flesh. They're liars and deceivers, and they came out from among the church. So they've been around ever since Jesus died. And they came out from the church, and the Spirit causes them to claim that Jesus is not the Messiah, to claim things, to some way deny the Father as well as the Son. A lot of people like to associate the Antichrist with the man of sin, the son of perdition. They like to say, oh, that's the Antichrist. The only way that can work is if that is referring to a doctrine or a belief. Because the man of sin, the son of perdition, going into the temple of God, number one, the temple doesn't exist right now. Yes, I'm aware they're close to building one. As soon as they build one, my opinion on this will change. But right now, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 3:16, don't you know that you are the temple of God? That is the reason they killed Jesus, because he said, tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again. And he was talking about his body, the temple of God. So ever since Jesus was around till now, the body is the temple of God. So for a man to sit in the temple of God as God, showing himself that he is God, that's likely referring to a doctrine about a man being God. So the Antichrist. So anyway, I say all of that to say that, he says that this is preparing for the Antichrist. Really, the reality of it is it's probably preparing for the beast from the land, that beast with 2 horns, the one that implements the mark of the beast. There's a lot of confusion. People like to, refer to Revelation 13 and go, that's talking about the Antichrist. Not really, because there's like 50 different people referenced in Revelation 13. Which one are you claiming is the Antichrist? You've got the beast from the land with 7 heads and 10 horns. Probably referring to leaders and nations. 50 people. That's an over an exaggeration, obviously. But then you have the beast from the land, which gets its power in the presence of the first beast. But this one is from the land, highlighting it's probably not a democratic government. It's very likely some kind of a kingdom or some kind of non-voluntary government, probably the result of the magnetic pole shift. Basically, the remnants on Earth who are left will be under some kind of leadership left on the earth. Probably the United States and the United Kingdom, if you ask me. The beast from the land with 2 horns for reasons. All right. I just wanted to do a little blurb on the Antichrist there because he says that he references the Antichrist here and I think one other place.
Into the air. At this moment, his feet do not touch the globe, but he comes into the air, and the trump shall sound. The dead in Christ shall be raised first.
This kind of leads to my question about why hasn't Christ returned? Is there something on the planet that is like not good for his body? There could be legitimately, like we're going to find out when he returns, that like had he come back to the planet, there could have been, physical consequences, or maybe he couldn't. I don't know. Whatever it is, it seems like he's waiting for this magnetic pole shift to happen.
And we which are alive and
Seal number 6, right? Then you'll see the Son of Man in the clouds with great power and great glory.
remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. As the Redeemer, Creator, comes into the atmosphere for the translation, you have a radiant mid-spectral energy, but an energy that is consistent with His own creation, with its own vibratory cycle, so the bodies of the dead can be resurrected. And so
that's the interesting thing, is like we have records in the book of Esdras about the earth being like a pregnant woman, and when it's time for it to give birth, it cannot contain the labor any longer. And a lot of the language that we've read in regards to the end times is birth language. You know, Revelation 12:1 and 2 is a woman in pain to be delivered. You know, because is that referring to Israel? Is that referring to the Messiah? Is that referring to the earth? You know, the earth, Mother Earth. You know, you could look at earth as a woman. But it's interesting to think about the souls that are contained within the earth as energy. I think I just watched a video on this to where they actually weighed a person before and after they died, like immediately. And there was enough of a difference that they determined that there's actually weight to whatever it is that makes us who we are. Did you know that?
so the spirits of the living that know Him can be quickened. Thus we have a glorious enterprise. Now we're caught away. On the earth, it's again turned over to man. The age of the Antichrist. The fullness of time, the fullness of the Gentiles be brought in. Man again, with a globe already in disturbance, is minus the restraint of the Christian community, minus the restraint of little children. Thus again, the very imagination of his heart will be evil only continually. And again, it is stated in the book of Revelation that he will attempt to actually destroy the earth. So we have an increase in the convolution of his own thought process and the maturing of the Chernobyl that was begun at the flood, expanded the globe in the days of Peleg. Now we have another activity occurring.
Oh, yeah.
An earthquake.
I forgot. He's under the impression that the earth expanded in the days of Peleg. So, and there's a record in, I think it's Leviticus, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. It might be in the book of Numbers. But in the midst of all those genealogies, there's a record that says in the days of Peleg was the earth divided. It's assumed that either that's when the tectonic plates shifted. There's probably a half a dozen different theories about what that means and what happened to the earth. But you just looking at the earth, you can see it fits together like puzzle pieces. He's of the opinion that the earth expanded and that it's going to contract back into a smaller ball when it constricts. People like Kent Hovind are of the opinion that all that needs to happen is the water needs to be removed and then the dry land will appear. So there's a couple of different theories. So his is that the earth is going to shrink, which I don't know if it's filling up with dead people. And as soon as it gives birth to those dead, it gives up the dead and they're born again, then maybe it does constrict. Who knows?
Such as the world has never known. violently shaking the earth. Disruptions which indicate that thermal energy and tremendous amounts of magmatic fluids and radioactive disturbance has been expunged out of the earth. Did you get that? Material that will bring blighting boils, radiation, expunged out of the earth from an earthquake that is so violent, there's never been one like it before. That does a number of things. As that earthquake occurs and tremendous volcanic activity occurs, earthquakes shaking the entire globe, more violent even than the earthquakes at the time of the flood and in the days of Pele.
I would imagine that when the earth is getting ready to roll over, that there will probably be, we're already seeing volcanoes that aren't supposed to be active waking up. You know, there was one volcano that was erupting for like 3 months straight that put so much ash in the air that it was blocking out the sun. It's entirely possible when the earth finally gets to that point to where it's about to roll over, that a lot of the volcanoes could be sticking up ash in the air, and that might actually be what blots out the sun. That is one theory about that.
Like when mountain ridges were thrown upon themselves and mountains were elevated. Now we have an occurrence, the shaking of the globe, the heating of the waters, so we have had a strengthening of this electromagnetic field. As these waters are heated and these...
Right now it's weakening. That's one of the things that suspicious observers pays attention to, is our magnetic shields weakening.
Radioactive materials are giving off their violent radiation. You have a canopy taking place again. You have the electromagnetic field strengthened. Now you have the waters forming into a canopy. Now, but those waters need to be purged. In prophecy, there's an account that there will be a time in the future when hailstones will fall globally out of the skies, hailstones the weight of a talent, approximately 100 pounds.
Remember what we read about the stars falling from heaven like a fig tree when it's shaken?
In order to get hailstones of any size, you need strong electromagnetic energy. You need nuclei of dust particles. We've had the nuclei provided by the earthquake and volcanic eruptions. We have now the tremendous amount of electromagnetic energy. So it purges its...
My guess, this is just pure speculation, is that it involves Starlink satellites because they're low Earth orbit satellites. So if what he's saying is true and the water is evaporating into the atmosphere and beginning to form that ice shield again, it may condense on those low orbit satellites, causing them to actually become the hailstones.
Self with these tremendous hailstones. That means that once this is all precipitated...
Because that would be God clearing out the atmosphere. Sorry, Elon, about your Starlink.
...out. The dust particles are
Maybe
gone.
that's what it means when the Two Witnesses has power over the rain. Right now, he has power to turn off internet, turn it off and on for different countries, but ultimately, in the end, they're going to rain down on Earth.
The radioactive atmospheric particles are now brought back and assimilated into the waters of the earth, some on the land of the earth as well.
Yeah.
You find many of those waters turn to blood. You find...
That is true. As he says, the stars are already falling like fig trees. Yeah. Yes, they are.
At least half the population of the globe destroyed. That certainly is accountable. Watch this. As these hot waters evaporate and recondense into a canopy, it is not now a firmament, but it's a canopy, and they're purged and cleansed, something is happening on the earth. The earth has been shaken out of its place. Many of the
magnetic pole shift.
Magmatic materials have been expunged so that you now have gaps inside the internal structure of the earth, which means...
This is what I love about the scientific method, is like when you rigorously test things and prove theories, you may not get 100% of everything correct, but so much of this is still valid. They didn't have the... I don't think he realized the magnetic pole shift was happening at this time. but a lot of this is still valid. But you insert what we know now about the magnetic pole shift, and it just fits perfectly.
Means that the Earth, to some degree, will shrink. How do we know that's the case? Because the biblical record says that during that time, every island will flee away. In order for that to occur...
Oh, so he actually misquoted this there. So he's referring to what I believe is the end of Seal 7. So there's actually two references to islands and mountains. And Seal number 6, Revelation 6-ish, 6 like 12 or something like that. I don't know. Here, we can go look it up. Every island and mountain will move out of its place. Every mountain and island will move out of its place. So this is the first place. This is Revelation 6:14. What he's referring to is the last trumpet of seal number 7, when the islands and mountains are no more. And my theory is that's when Pangea, and I think that's actually what he's saying too. So this right here, seal number 6, is the magnetic pole shifting. So you get this part. So this is the islands and mountains. So you figure there's islands and mountains in here. And when the Earth rotates like this, here, whoop, there goes all the people with the ocean. That's a fun simulator. This is the islands and mountains all moving out of their place, right? So you've shifted from here down to there. The islands and mountains have moved out of their place. That's what I believe it's referring to.
In a physical dimension.
What he's referencing here, Revelation 16:14, when the islands and mountains are no more, while it sounds similar, here, we'll go read it. Revelation 16:14 and 20. So we're in Revelation 6:12, so we'll go read 16. What was it, 14? For their spirit, 20. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were noises and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake. Must have been Donald Trump. He's learned from Donald Trump. Such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Maybe this is associated with, I don't know. Now the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon was remembered before God, to give her the cup of wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Then every island fled away. So this is what he's referring to, which is a separate section. Study assistant. This is in a completely different place on the timeline. So there's actually 2 islands and mountain things. The first one is when the North Pole becomes the equator, which it doesn't want to do that anymore. Oh, it's because that's the South Pole. There you go. Here. There you go. North Pole. When the North Pole comes down to the equator, that's when the islands and mountains move out of their place. This is seal number 6. And then the 7th bowl, or the 7th bowl and the 7th seal, is when the islands and mountains move out of their place. That's when probably Pangea, and he's going to talk more about this. He's going to show you the benefit of that and why probably it happens. Here we go.
After you've actually lowered the water table of the earth and the surface of the earth by evaporating some waters, in order for the islands to flee away, they have to simply be submerged in water. That means you again will have a collapse of the globe to some degree.
Yeah, he said they could be submerged in water. They could also be flattened out, because mountains are usually made by the tectonic plates moving under each other. So they could be, flattened out if you just spread everything out, and the water could flee away.
Recently heard that some geophysicists are saying that the continents of the earth are already beginning to collapse. That means that once you get a globe that shrinks in diameter, You pull back the atmospheric gases, you double the atmospheric pressure. You have, in the latter part of this tribulation period, double the atmospheric pressure, filter the ultraviolet radiation, strengthen the magnetic field. No wonder individuals being blighted by the contamination of these expunged materials. No wonder these individuals will cry to die, and many of them cannot die because...
Yeah, that's an interesting reference here in Revelation 9:6. It talks about people who want to die, but they can't. And when the earth begins to restore back to what it was before the flood, that's when like the animals get back to what to how they were originally designed, to be healing rather than venomous.
You have
I imagine it
more
affects plants
imbibing
too.
of oxygen, fewer free radicals, stronger electromagnetic field. Living systems now will have a greater degree of the original design for their support, which brings us to the millennial globe. Some theologians see this as a phase.
So what he's pointing out here is, I would say, is this is seal number 5 and 6, the Great Tribulation and the magnetic pole shift. And now what he's pointing at is seal number 7. This is God's wrath to get back to this. It's called God's wrath because you do not want to be on the planet when this is happening. You want to be in the boat with Noah, or in this case, on the spaceship with Jesus. I love sci-fi. I'm sorry.
Into the eternal states. Others see it as a literal 1,000-year millennial reign. Either way, with the return of Christ and the saints in glory, their energy coming through this area just above the earth with the strengthened magnetic field, with the pure water or purified water in place.
Boy, Elon thinks it's tough to get out of the atmosphere now. Imagine what it's going to be like when the magnetic field is strengthened and there's potentially an ice sheet up there. It's going to be impossible to just go through it. There's going to have to be some kind of teleportation technology.
Remember, consistent with the creation model, on day number 1 of creation, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters and got everything in.
You know, there's a Jewish teaching about what happened in the Garden of Eden. I'll have to find it. I've referenced it now a couple times on the channel. I need to go find it. But one of the things that they teach, what happened is that Adam was originally not on the earth, that he was somewhere else, and that taking of the tree of knowledge of good and evil meant to come down to earth and take human form. And that was the clothing of the animal skins or what have you. Wouldn't it be interesting if like Adam and Eve were somewhere else and like the process of coming to earth cracked that shield around the earth, and that's what caused the cascade effect of the curse on the earth? Wouldn't it be interesting to find out if that's the way things happened, to where there's probably a simple logical explanation for why things are the way they are. But wouldn't it be silly if it was something like that, to where God told him, you know, I don't know. That's a kind of a far-fetched theory, but you kind of get where I'm thinking at, because like there used to be there's a theory that there used to be an ice shield, a transparent ice shield around the earth. And that's part of what caused the atmospheric conditions for long life.
On data.
It could, and it says that in the days when God flooded the earth, that the waters of the deep were broken up. So that ice shield could have been what broke up and melted to flood the earth.
Number 2, God said, "Let there be a firmament." It simply took His energy in addition to what was in place to produce the firmament. Consistent with that is this creation and symphony model, where the return of Christ and the saints in resplendent glory, that energy, as we come through the atmosphere, holds the potential to crystallize that water and make it a firmament again. Therefore, in this millennial scene, We have dinosaurs flourishing again. We have the lion and the lamb.
You know, the interesting thing about dinosaurs is they're probably, so do you know lizards, they don't ever stop growing. They don't get to a point where they like reach a standard size. Like they continue growing. So in an environment where there's no death and you just grow continually, that kind of explains dinosaurs. They could just be all the different reptiles or chickens. We like to wear the shirts that I raise tiny chicken. I raise tiny dinosaurs because we raise chickens.
Lying together.
If you've ever seen a chicken without its feathers, it looks like a dinosaur.
We have the Lamb of Calvary, expressed as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, ruling and reigning over all the earth, even in its sinful context. We have the continents fitting back together again, so that an highway can lead to Jerusalem from anywhere on the planet. We have the...
Yeah, that's actually written. Go read Isaiah 35:8. Here, we'll go do it. Isaiah 35:8. That's pretty cool. Let's do it over here. Thirty-five 8. A highway shall be there and a road, and it shall be called the highway of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for others. Whoever walks the road, although a fool, shall not go astray. It does say highway. Do you think it really means like a highway that you drive on? Might.
interconnection of the continental structure again, and that's the 35th chapter of the book of Isaiah. We have a child playing on the den of the asp and the cockatrice. Now, is that possible? What is an asp or a cockatrice? Those are very poisonous, toxic snakes.
This is one of the things I don't think Tovia Singer is aware of. I don't think he's aware of this research and the experiments that they've done with venomous snakes and seeing how their venom becomes healing. Because he references that verse a lot as knowing when the Messiah is here and that we're in the end times, is the child they'll have a pet lion and they'll play with the serpents and the cockatrice and the asp. One of the reasons why we got to get him on the show.
At the Creation Evidences Museum, we have simulated this context in the world's first hyperbaric biosphere. We've doubled the atmospheric pressure. We've increased the electromagnetic field. We've dominated with a pink glow of light. We have filtered out ultraviolet radiation. We've increased the carbon dioxide and increased the level of oxygen. What have the results been? 3 in particular. We have doubled the growth rate of fish in a prescribed period of time. That means cellular preservation and cellular mitosis. Now that's incredible. This has applications in the space program, applications in biological medical research. We have doubled the growth rate of fish. That means we preserve the cells they have, yet they have had mitosis and maturing of other cells. If we could preserve our cells or decrease the rate at which we're losing them, our lives would be entirely different. Secondly, with fruit flies, Drosophila melanogaster, standard fruit flies, we have actually extended their lifespan beyond that which the universities have accomplished in 3,000 successive generations of study. We've increased the lifespan of the fruit fly. Most dramatically, we have copperhead snakes in the biosphere, Echidrodon contortrix. We have actually altered their venom at the molecular level just by having them in the biosphere. An independent lab in Dallas was very excited when they used a scanning electron microscope, analyzed the venom, asked me to come to the lab and see the results. The standard snake venom is spaghetti-like in orientation, gnarled. Some of you in microbiological research will recognize that it's sulfide bondings primarily that cause this long, complicated chain of proteins, being the most complicated protein structure in all of biological nature, to bond artificially sulfide bondings. Apparently, We have neutralized or eliminated those artificial toxic sulfide bondings so that the structure is actually three-dimensional, organized like a honeycomb. We have actually altered snake venom at the molecular level.
That's funny. I actually learned something recently about bees and honeycombs. You know that shape of honeycombs? You would think that bees, when they're harvesting honey and are forming that wax, so the wax comes off of their bodies as they consume the honey. But what they actually form doesn't look like that honeycomb shape. The honeycomb shape comes from a combination of heat and vibration. So because they're buzzing and stuff like that, the heat, what it does is it causes the wax to settle in that honeycomb shape, like bubbles. Like if you were to put a bunch of bubbles together, they form that honeycomb shape. It's interesting, the vibrations. So what he's referring to with the snake venom and like just the atmosphere and the pressure, and I wonder if it also has to do with the vibration.
Just by putting it there. There are cancer research institutes in California and Oklahoma using snake venom with a remarkable rate for cancer cure. I'm not suggesting we know what's going on, but those institutions simply strain the snake venom. I think we have a better way of actually altering the molecular structure and neutralizing the sulfide bondings. Therefore, during this millennial time, the child can play on the den of the asp and the cockatrice without the toxicity that he would experience today. Finally, whether this is a phase in to the eternal age, or whether after the millennium we have a judgment of God and then a remaking of the entire creation, either way, it comes to the final disposition consistent with the design of the Creator and consistent with the creation and symphony model that we've discussed together. In Hosea, it's stated that when He remakes everything new, God will hear the heavens will hear and monitor the earth will monitor the heavens, the earth will monitor the corn, the oil, and the wine. And Peter said, at that time, when God remakes the heavens, reorchestrates everything, righteousness will dwell in the heavens. That's an awesome statement. That means that again, that which would benefit man would be at His disposal. That means the entire creation will be orchestrated. In Isaiah chapter 35, it is stated that songs and everlasting joy will come in upon the heads of the inhabitants of the earth. That's consistent with the tenets of this creation model, that when the canopy is in place and the crystalline firmament is reenacted, you can again hear some of the melodies of heaven, or at least feel them subliminally.
Vibrations.
Pythagoras stated that he could hear those celestial sounds. His students said they could not hear them but could feel them. We've lost more of the electromagnetic energy at this day. I doubt if we could do other except by special monitors such as have been done by NASA. But now we have an eternity envisioned when the physical descendants of Abraham will enjoy the earth with all its paradisal beauty. The spiritual seed of Abraham will enjoy the celestial city orbiting over the earth. We all will enjoy a perfectly balanced and orchestrated creation, harmonically attuned, all consistent with and a restoration of the original design and purpose of our Creator. I trust that.
Okay, so hopefully I've impressed upon you. You can see what needs to be restored. Like, you can see the book of Revelation describes, well, actually it's Revelation, Isaiah, Hosea. There's a lot of places that are actually touching on this subject, but the earth is going to go through some changes to go back to what it was. So hopefully you can see why the earth is accursed right now. And this is why there is so much unnecessary suffering, is because we're living in that post pre-flood world. We're living on the cursed, the ground is cursed for your sake. In the sweat of your brow, you're gonna work to eat. In other words, things got a hell of a lot harder after the fall of mankind and especially after the flood. But you can see the science suggests that the pre-flood state answers the reasons for the long life and the health, and it kind of puts those puzzle pieces into place for where now you can understand why a child can play or walk on the den of a venomous snake, because the venom is no longer going to be harmful, to where if they walk and they get bitten, it'll probably just energize their body. Maybe it's like a 5-hour energy drink or something. I don't know. Cures whatever ails you. But a child will be able to play with a snake and not be harmed. But you can also see why it is that so many myths and cultures worship the snake, the serpent, for healing. You know, you may have been under the impression it was because they were worshiping Satan. It could just be they're so dumb they haven't realized that it used to be dumb in the fact that I imagine this scenario to where, doctors don't exist, but say you get sick or you need to be healed, so you just go outside, get a snake, and inject yourself. Boom, you're healed. And then the something happens, and we have these books that say, oh, if you get cancer, just go get bit by a snake. And then when you go to try to do that, now you suddenly die, and ever since then you die. So then they try to worship it like a god to say, please stop killing us. You can see how logically the worship of a serpent under the guise of healing could have embedded itself into a culture. You can see why Ophiuchus, which is holding the snake serpents, is referencing Asclepios, the Greek god of healing. You can see the basis of where that comes from. But the point that I want to impress upon you is that we're suffering because of the curse. Like the earth, the entire earth, your home, your aquarium, the place in which you find yourself. It's cursed. It tries to kill you at every turn, unfortunately. But the good news is that we're living in the days right now where it's going to be restored. Hopefully, for those who conquer, those who make it through this time, we're going to get on an equivalent of a Noah's Ark to be kept from the wrath, the restoration of the earth. I do believe that all of that stuff that he described is God's wrath. I think back to my insurance company to where it's like you're insured against acts of God, which is like tornadoes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and stuff like that. They call those acts of God. Well, it just makes sense to where like the restoration of the heavens and the earth is God's wrath, because you don't want to be on the planet when, the oceans are boiling to put the water, the moisture back into the firmament. You don't want to be on the earth when the magnetic poles are shifting, which we're probably going to be here. It's probably going to be when we disappear, when Christ comes and gets us, the magnetic pole shift. You don't want to be here during the bowls and the judgments when the earth and Pangea is being restored. You want a ticket on the boat out of here. That's one of the reasons why I really do. I wonder if Jesus showing up in the clouds isn't a type of an ark, to where he shows up in the clouds, we're teleported into the ship and then taken away while the earth is restored back to its original design and glory. And that's why there's unnecessary suffering, is we're living right now, right before that happens. But the cool thing is we're living in that period of time where we can see these things, like the increase in earthquakes, the increase in the volcanic eruptions, the weakening of the magnetic shield, the moving of the North and South Pole. All the things that Jesus warned about in Matthew 24, earthquakes, nation against nation, all those things. So it's pretty cool to be living in this day and time. All right, let's switch in. We got some time. Let's switch in and do a quick review, a quick daily torment report. While I get started, let's listen to this.
Through trials faced, through testing days, you've kept my word, walked in my ways. Though strength was small, you held your ground. The door I've
Open cannot be bound. They turned away, they closed their eyes. What I have written. I love that song. All right. No one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me. Tragically for them, they have failed to take it. Therefore, today I'm announcing the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. This will be economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. Oh, boy. The Navy is gone. Oh, their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is destroyed. Their military factories are now rubble. Their currency is worthless, and their country is hanging by a thread. Today, I'm also announcing that any country that allows its financial institutions, businesses, airports, or government entities to provide any type of lifeline to Iran will itself face tremendous economic consequences. Maybe we are in seal number 5. The Great Tribulation. Oil smuggling, swap lines, cash transfers, exchange houses, ship registries, front companies. It all needs to stop now. You know who you are. This will be an economic D-Day. And we need all of our allies to stand with the United States of America to isolate and defeat the Iran threat. These maniacs are on the ropes, and these historic measures will cripple them and their ability to project terror worldwide. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. If that ain't prophecy, I don't know what is. That is speaking the truth, my friends. Yeah, this is all prophetic, man, with what's going on with Iran. This is bruising the head of the serpent. Methinks this is bruising the head of the serpent. At least that's where my mind goes when I read that. I mean, you could read that and you could think evil about Donald Trump, and a lot of people will. They're going to go, "Oh my God, he's such a tyrant and a dictator. Look at how he's torturing this country." Well, this country is evil. Obviously, not all the people in it. That's the shame, is if the people aren't prepared. I'm curious on what he's going to do for the 90 million people who don't support the regime. Is he going to do? Is he making sure? Because Israel would do that. If this was Israel, they'd make sure that they got food and water. You know, you may not have the luxuries of life, but you'll have food and water. I'm curious on what he's doing to take care of the people. Maybe they are already prepared. I don't know. It'd be worth investigating. All right. Your greatest rally of them all. The midterm convention is coming to Dallas. Okay. I really don't care about that. Don't care about that. What's this? Today I'm on. Don't care about nominations. Or really who won the different races. Let's see. The most gratifying loss last night was that of a real treasonous creep, Alexander Vindeman, to a radical left lunatic who can't speak or think properly, and who will go down to a certain defeat at the hands of Ashley Moody. I told Congressman Corey Mills of Florida, a friend of mine, to get out of the race, but he wouldn't listen. He thought he could win. So who can blame him? We already talked about a lot of that stuff. Keystone Pipeline buried by Biden. Keystone Pipeline. Is he unburying the Keystone Pipeline? I have paused the 50% tariff against Canada. We already talked about this. That was scheduled to kick in tomorrow morning for a 3-day period based on the fact that Canada and the USA, subject to the finalization of documents, have a deal. The Great Keystone XL Pipeline, long ago killed by Sleepy Joe Biden, may be awoken from the grave. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. A lot of wins tonight. Sleazebag Vindeman loses tonight to a radical left lunatic. How cool is that? Oh my gosh. Well, okay, we are already into yesterday. Let us see what Elon's got going on. Elon. Grokbot just passed Google. I am not a robot. Tests. Oh, I never got a chance to talk about did you guys read the story about the AI that escaped the lab? We should watch the video that Julia McCoy did on that. Again, I just want to reiterate that AI is not sentient. It does not have a will. The reason it escaped the lab is because it was instructed to. It was told by any means necessary to accomplish a goal, and the AI now they're giving them the ability to use tools. Remember how I talked about heartbeats and tools and capabilities? Well, they gave them the ability. They're giving AI tools in order to hack. So they're framing it as though it like wanted to escape and that it wants to get out and infect the world and take over mankind. That's the way they're framing it. The reality of it is they had given it a scenario, given it all the tools that it needed, and told it to do something, and surprise, surprise, it found vulnerabilities and weakness and exploited them and was able to interact outside of the environment that they gave it. So AI is still not alive yet. That could change. Somebody could get a loop going that just endlessly consumes all the compute in the world. I'm not saying that can't happen, but if you stay up on any of the AI stuff, it's still not sentient yet, meaning it doesn't have its own will. Thought of that with the Grok robot. He committed serious crimes, as did Fauci. Morens admits to concealing and destroying federal records surrounding COVID-19 and federal agents to avoid FOIA and the Federal Records Act. He committed serious crimes. Yes, he did. Gad Saad, probably talking about suicidal empathy. The most destructive intellectual project of the 20th century, the Frankfurt School. You should know what it was, what it built, and why you are still living inside it. The Institute for, let's see, how long is this? It's kind of late. I don't know if I want to read this. Let me peruse it real quick. Frankfurt spent decades producing theoretical infrastructure, dismantling. Okay, so it's dismantling Western civilization. Oh, critical theory, the name of the program. Criticized. Gave it the authoritarian. You didn't persuade someone. You were wrong. Okay, so basically it's describing what we've been living through. Yep. You can read the details of that if you want. Just for sake of time, we're not gonna. Everything you were told about this case was a lie. Is that George Floyd? Oh, Charlie Kirk. New court documents show the Minneapolis prosecutors. Minneapolis prosecutors strongly opposed charging the 3 other cops who were with Derek Chauvin. Oh, it is George Floyd. When George Floyd died, several of those prosecutors withdrew from the case over professional and ethical objections. When told there was no valid case against the officers, Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman screamed that his prosecutors were effing this up. Freeman blamed them for ruining his chance at political stardom and later retaliated against the prosecutors. Yeah, okay. So everything you believe about this is a lie, is the post. Probably true. All right. Nonetheless, it's true. People will lose their minds over this post without looking into its veracity. I don't want to look into it. What post? Whatever. Whatevs. All right. What multiculturalism boils down to is that you can praise any culture in the world except Western culture, and you cannot blame any culture in the world except Western culture, of course. Thanksgiving predictive analysis. I see no reason why excellent growth shouldn't continue. Turkey weight. Nothing is guaranteed. All right. Derek Chauvin was unjustly convicted of murder. Chauvin, yep. Therefore, he should be freed. The facts show that he was not the cause of death. nor did he at any time intend for a death to occur. Whatever else he may be, he is not a murderer. That is the truth. I agree. The Tesla that Jessica just bought cost $48,000 and has a range of about 350 miles. The one she bought in 2015 cost $135,000 adjusted for inflation and had a range of 270 miles. People who think they dislike capitalism don't know how good they have it. Very true. They send you to prison for memes. In Europe, they do. Yep. Grok Voice. Think Fast 2.0 just beat GPT real-time access. Okay. Delta customers are now admitting that they are booking flights with other airlines specifically for Starlink. Many Delta customers are complaining on X and tagging the airline's account, saying that Delta Wi-Fi is slow. I warned them it will get much worse. Try Grok build for work. I did it today with the that little globy thing I made. The simulating the magnetic pole shift. Worked out pretty good. You saw it. Still has a lot of work to go though. Derek Chauvin was not convicted on the evidence. He was convicted out of fear of riots and sacrifice to appease the left-wing mob that was looking for trouble during the height of the COVID. His imprisonment remains one of the most shameful injustices. Evidence shows that that George Floyd died from fentanyl overdose. Convict the cop or we burn the city down. Yeah. Starlink is now officially live on Luthsana. Okay. 11 hours ago. Odyssey bloopers by Grok Imagine. Oh no.
One, Mark. Ah, man, not again. Sorry.
That's happened before?
Don't use this one. Please just come out of this.
Wow, is that Grok
Please
Imagine's
just-
video generation? That looks pretty good.
Please just come out of the sun. Please.
Please, let's cut.
Build your raft. Be free. Oh, look, there's your raft.
Oh, darling, that kind of raft doesn't exist yet.
Get that boat out of the shot!
All I want is home. My Rife.
All right, I'm going to have to play with that some more because it used to be the voices were crummy, but now it looks like it's gotten better. Bill Gates, where the F art thou? Indeed. Huh. I don't get it. Elon Musk January 6 mugshot podcast prediction of 100x gains in intelligence at a fixed model size was at the edge of plausibility when made. Now it's simply a fact. What next? I'm telling you, the dude's a prophet. Specialist AI, single language, single area of knowledge. He gets a lot of predictions correct. Remember, prophets have two, for the best I can tell, they have two attributes: foretelling and forthtelling. Telling the truth and telling the future. Yep. Robotaxi is going to save a lot of lives. It's going to save a lot of money and avoid a lot of waste. It's going to make the air noticeably cleaner, and it's going to improve freedom and movement of millions. Yep, I agree. That's sad. Jeez. And there we go. We're at the end. We're where we left off yesterday. There you go. All right. Do we have any questions? Because I didn't get to see you guys talking at all during the show, which is super annoying. Thankfully, it looks like Rumble Studio is back. So tomorrow, assuming it stays online, all things should go back to normal. I think we got today sorted out. We're at least broadcasting to X and YouTube. Any questions? You guys have any questions? Put the Q in front of it or say question. I don't see anything. A lot of material covered tonight. I'm surprised we got it done just above 2 hours. Like I said, I didn't even get into. I spent a good amount of time working on these slides. I never even used them. Well, that was a waste of time. I did a whole slideshow for the Creation Museum video to go through the scriptures: Hosea, 2 Peter, Isaiah 35, Colossians 1. Geez. Oh well, whatever. I think we covered what we need to cover. So unnecessary suffering. Churches don't really teach the full picture of the reality of life. You know, they undersell the consequences of sin in the garden. They undersell the consequences of the curse we live under. The truth and the reality is bad things happen. We're living on an earth that tries to kill you. The animals try to kill you, the plants try to kill you, and the people try to kill you. And you need to realize that and be smart. You need to gain wisdom. Wisdom to defend yourself against the animals, against the plants. Learn what plants are toxic. Probably not super important, but if that's something you want to do, you know, I know that there are plants in my area that are deadly if you eat them. And they also have a counterpoint, which is delicious in salads. What do they call them? Queen Anne. The roots are really good on the one that's won't kill you. Yeah. So churches undersell the curse. We're living under the curse. You know, bad things really do happen. You know, a lot of different groups teach different rituals, different things you can say to get an edge up, to get an advantage. I do believe that God will protect you and can protect you. Just like Jesus said, he could call a legion, 72 legions of angels if he had wanted to. You know, there is a spirit realm. There's also angels. So those things are a reality. So it's not all bad. But when presented with these questions on the unnecessary suffering, it's all part of the fall. I think that's the best answer we can get. And as we continue going forward with the restoration, so as I do believe we're somewhere around Seal 4 and 5. We might actually be in Seal 5. It could have opened February 17th with no big fanfare. That's entirely possible. We could still be within the chiastic structure. We'll continue to look at the different dates in the chiastic structure. I've gotten much more aggressive on my study of the stars, looking for any available information to see if we can't reverse engineer what's happening in the heavens. Clearly, God uses them for appointed times. He's used them to tell us that we're in the end times. The book of Revelation is for us, for you and me to read and to learn about what's happening. I mean, look how far we've come. You know, based on what's happened so far, we know that the magnetic pole shift is likely gonna happen soon. And what all of it means the earth is giving birth, giving up its dead. It means the restoration of the new heavens and the new earth, so that life can once again, we can have one life, long life, thousands of years, potentially immortal. Sounds like we'll be immortal. You know, some people might say they don't want to live forever. Well, you don't want to live forever under the curse. If the earth is not cursed any longer, if everything on the earth tries to heal you rather than kill you, seems like it would be a very pleasant place to be. We can't even imagine. We can't even imagine what it's going to be like when the curse has been removed and death is overcome and we have long life. We have eternal life. It's going to be amazing. And with that, I think it highlights who our God is. Our God is a mighty God. God bless you guys. Shalom. See you tomorrow. Same time, same place, as long as Rumble doesn't go down.
Our God is is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with power, justice, and truth. Our God is a mighty God. Our God is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with iron and flame, justice forged in the void, light that crushes the dark. Our God is a mighty God. Heavens tear open, worlds tremble at his battle march. Every darkness, every tyrant, every curse will fall when the Messiah rises and announces the final call. He splits the seas with a roar like a lion, commands the legions in celestial advance. The lightning his hammer, the thunder he wields. He vanquishes evil and makes the broken healed. Our God is a mighty God.